I'm going to bring you along my journey into an abandoned military forest somewhere in Scandinavia. And I'll give you some urban exploring photography tips along the way. 2 decades ago, the military shut down their activity here, at least part of it. If I go deeper into the woods, there's a great risk of danger, deadly injury, and also I probably wouldn't be able to take photos since last time I tried they got distorted. So I think there's some kind of technology interfering with my camera. Before I start, I wanna say that I plan on going to a train graveyard in another video, so let me know if you want me to record that by subscribing or telling me in the comments. Enough of that. My journey started like a German fairy tale with a bird leading me into the woods. When I took the photos, I didn't expect anything extraordinary, but the reflections made the black and white magpie suddenly colorful. In the last video when I entered this forest, I showed some tracks which looked like bear tracks. I wasn't really sure of what tracks it were, but I more or less got it confirmed since I met a photographer which told me he had spotted a bear in these woods just about a month ago. He also told me that he's been spotting owls too, so if I see some, I should be careful since some of them can be really aggressive and claw your face. I both want and don't want to see a bear or an owl, since it would be cool to see one in the wild, but it can potentially be very dangerous. So the ultimate goal would be to see one of those without getting hurt. But my main goal is of course to take some good looking urban exploration photos. Right before I even entered the woods, I found an old cartridge on the ground. There have been people finding ammunition and explosives here before. One kid picked up a flashbang which exploded in his face. Luckily he didn't die, so if I find something like that, I should control my urges to pick it up and instead report it to the police. The only thing I've found so far is bullets and shells, but no sealed ammunition with actual gunpowder inside. They have warning signs saying that I should enter at my own risk, but I think it's pretty safe, since the story about the kid was a really long time ago and I haven't heard about anyone else finding explosives. The military have been cleaning up more after that, so yeah. The first stop is an explosive facility, where bombs have been dropped, so to speak. Hopefully a long time ago. And some people seem to have been bored while being on duty. Later on I tried to get inside a warehouse of some sort, surrounded by barbed wire. The gate was open, but the doors were closed. I don't know if I'm allowed in there or not, and I didn't want to spend too much time there in case the military were nearby. So I carried on towards the old shooting range instead. Now I'm in the part of the woods where no current construction is going on, so I'm pretty much alone here. At least that's what I hope. This place used to look completely different. They had buildings for the shooting range and targets at the end of it, just in front of the hill. I think the hill served the purpose of absorbing the bullets. One of few houses that are left is this one. Luckily it was open for me to have a look inside. I should have brought a better flashlight though. The house was filled with trash from shady people that hang around in these woods. You'll see more of it if you keep on watching. Anyways, there are shards of glass all over the floor. Luckily I had working shoes on me, so my feet felt pretty safe. Quickly I realized that my zoom lens wasn't ideal for the small area I was in. But I could solve the problem by using my smartphone. I used the door as a point of interest and chose an angle that could add some 3D depth with these walls and lines. Even though there was low lighting conditions, I was able to get some photos. And while I'm at it, I will give you some advice if you want to take urban exploring photos but don't want to carry too much equipment. That is to bring your smartphone and a zoom lens with variable zoom starting at around 50mm and use it on your DSLR. By doing that, you will cover a broad range of focal length, starting with a wide-angle phone lens all the way to the longest focal length of the DSLR lens. You can see that my photos from my phone could cover a lot more of space, and I think that fits really good for urban exploring, since you will often find yourself in cramped up rooms like this, or even smaller places. An equally as important advice would be to bring a tripod for your phone, since you will need to have a longer shutter speed in order to expose the photo correctly. And the smartphone tripods are usually small and you can find them for a cheap price too. I found an interesting thing when I searched the floor. It was a bird's nest. Now, I don't know much about birds, but it's really dark in here and most owls are nocturnal. It's sad that people leave trash all over the place though if they live here. I mean, come on, don't litter, and especially not this much. Anyways, I carried on and left the house. Eventually, I entered a field with a hill in the middle of it. On top of it, I found a couple of chairs, which reminded me of a scene in Donnie Darko, if you have seen that movie, when they sit and shoot their BB guns and talk about Smurfette. I had a quick look at the view, which wasn't really special, since the hill was not that big. After that, I went into another shady building. I really know nothing about what kind of place this used to be. The walls around it makes me wonder if they were used as covers somehow. If you think you might have an idea of what kind of building this is, then feel free to comment. I was here last fall actually. Back then when I entered the house, it was filled with smoke and then there were candles on the floor along with small plastic skulls placed like a satanic star. I have a photo of it somewhere, but I can't find it right now. But I will tell you when I find it. Right when I entered, I saw a string which made me worry for a second if this place was booby-trapped, so I simply stepped over it. There was only one room and it looked pretty much like the same type of people from the other building hang out here. Two things sticked out from the rest. This altar-looking contraption and the ceiling. The strings were attached to the ceiling in a construction work manner, but I have serious doubt that any professional construction is going on here. Except for that, there was not much more to see, so I headed out again. Suddenly I saw some movement beneath my feet. I first thought it was a frog, but what I was about to see surprised me. Now you guys living a bit more south would have probably shrugged at this discovery. But in all my life I have never seen a grasshopper or cricket that big where I live. First, it took cover in the grass, which was bad for me since the background merged into the color of the insect. But to my advantage, it jumped after a couple of seconds into a better background. I tried to get a more interesting angle of it, so I circulated around it a couple of times, since it constantly changed direction right when I thought I had the perfect shot. I would have of course wanted to get a bit closer, but this was the closest I could get with sharp focus. As I said before, there are some remains of people's activities in these woods. Here, for example, you see a microwave in the middle of the woods. The first photo was a bit flat, so I took some steps to the right to make it look more 3D. I constantly remind me to think this way and try out different perspectives. After that, I spotted another chair and a sofa. The first photo of the sofa didn't really say much, since there was no context to it except that it was outside. So I backed up a little to include more of the environment so it looked more abandoned and out of place. That's another thing I find useful when it comes to urban exploring photography, to include context, so the viewer can get a concept of where and in what conditions the photo was taken. The microwave obviously doesn't fit in the environment, since they don't belong outside, but the sofa could have been placed in a garden, for example. So when I backed up, you can see that it didn't belong there. After that, I discovered a swing, which I had to try out. But then I realized how shady I would have been if anyone saw me, a grown man sitting in a swing in the middle of the woods. My next finding shows the remains of what this place used to be. In hindsight, I should have taken some photos of it, not because the object is that interesting, but where it is placed is interesting and gives the photo a bit of a deeper meaning. I continued along the road I was in the last video, when something happened. I'm pretty positive that was an owl. There was another one too that flew right above my head. But unfortunately, I wasn't fast enough to catch it on camera. Just after this, I saw a twig hanging above me, and I realized that they had their nest here. I didn't want to scare potential nestlings more than I already had, so I circulated around and peeked into the shed, instead of going right inside. Even though I blew my shot of taking a photo of the owls, I was happy to see my first wild owl and have it on film. I know this wasn't the most interesting urban exploring video, but I thought I might as well take the opportunity to document the place before it's too late, since they will tear down the building soon. If you want more videos, then I would appreciate it a lot if you subscribed and turned on the bell notification. Have a good time now. Goodbye.